It's a cool, misty morning in the Ethiopian highlands. Goats are munching away on the undergrowth when suddenly one leaps up, shakes its head and seems to be prancing about with uncharacteristic glee. Its owner, a wiry man dressed in the traditional garb of the region, notices the change in behavior and eyes a nearby bush with interest. Sure enough, he spots clusters of bright red berries and plucks them from their stems. He chews on one and immediately feels a surge of energy course through his veins. Intrigued by what he has just consumed, he takes some berries back to his village. There he shares his bounty with the Ethiopian local monks, who try them and find they help them stay awake during their nightly prayers. Thus, according to one popular legend, coffee was discovered around 800 CE. While today we think of coffee as synonymous with the energizing beverage that gets us going each morning, it wasn't always this way. In fact, coffee originally was used by monks as a tool to stay alert while praying throughout the night. Coffee only became popular among civilians several centuries later. Today we will take a deep dive into the history and culture of this beloved beverage and find out how it went from Ethiopian goatherd to the world's favorite pick-me-up. Ethiopia is often celebrated as the birthplace of coffee, and the story of its discovery is deeply entwined with the country's rich history and vibrant culture. It is said to have originated in the southwestern highlands, in Kaffa, where the forests teemed with wildlife and the air was fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers and ripening fruits. That's where the goat herder called came across his excitable flock. Intrigued by their behavior, he followed them to the bushes where they had been feasting on bright red berries. Now there are many versions of this classic tale, but all agree that the coffee plant was first identified for its stimulant properties by Ethiopian goatherd who lived high in the mountains. Some historians believe that coffee could have been used even earlier by indigenous peoples for religious ceremonies or medicinal purposes. After all, the coffee plant is native to Ethiopia and grows naturally in many parts of the country. But despite early reports of its stimulant effect, it took several more centuries for coffee to gain wider recognition. The true story of coffee really began in the 15th century. Yemeni merchants traveling to Mocha on the Red Sea coast noticed Ethiopian traders drinking a strange brew that kept them awake during their journeys. Intrigued, they asked for some of the berries and took them back to Yemen. There, coffee soon began to grow wild in the mountainous regions around the town of Sana'a, which lies inland from the Red Sea port of Hodeida. By the end of the 16th century, coffee houses had begun to appear across the Middle East, serving as social hubs where people could connect over a shared cup. In Turkey, coffee became popular with the elite, and the Sultan even opened the first licensed coffee house in Istanbul in 1555. By the 17th century, coffee had reached Egypt and Syria. The first coffee house in Cairo opened in 1645, followed by the first in Damascus in 1666. These early coffee houses were instrumental in spreading the popularity of coffee throughout the Middle East. They offered not only a place to socialize, but also a respite from the heat of the day and a break from the strict rules of Ottoman society. Men from various walks of life could come together, talk freely, and enjoy the comforting aroma and taste of coffee. They would typically start the conversation with a discussion of the weather and then move on to more intellectual topics. It was not uncommon for debates about religion, philosophy, or politics to take place over a cup of coffee. Sometimes musicians or storytellers would entertain patrons and belly dancers would perform for tips. In addition to providing a space for socializing, these early coffee houses also played a role in disseminating knowledge and ideas. Intellectuals and scholars would gather in these establishments to discuss their work and exchange ideas. This created an atmosphere of creativity and intellectual ferment that contributed to the flourishing of art and culture in the Middle East. Meanwhile, coffee had arrived in Europe courtesy of Italian missionaries and merchants. By the early 17th century, Venice had become a hub for coffee trading, with several coffee houses opening in the city by 1605. Other European countries quickly followed suit. In England, coffee was first served at the British ambassador's house in Venice. The first coffee house in London opened in 1652. Across the continent, people were embracing coffee as a new alternative to beer, which was often contaminated and unsafe to drink. Coffee houses quickly gained popularity among intellectuals, artists, and revolutionaries who appreciated the beverage's ability to keep them alert and focused. One famous patron of the coffee house was French philosopher Voltaire, who once said that without coffee, he would have given up writing long ago. In the United States, coffee arrived with Dutch settlers in the 17th century and soon became ingrained in daily life. During the American Revolution, coffee houses served as gathering places for patriots who plotted against the British. Coffee was even served at the Continental Congress and became a symbol of independence. Today, coffee is more popular than ever. More than 2.2 billion cups of coffee are enjoyed every single day. Ethiopia, where coffee originated, remains one of the largest producers in the world, exporting between 20 and 35% of its total output. However, despite its leading position in the industry, coffee contributes less than expected to Ethiopia's overall economy. This is primarily due to limited resources and infrastructure issues that restrict access to international markets and hinder the growth of large-scale plantations. In contrast, Colombia, which produces less than 10% of the coffee produced in Ethiopia, earns almost twice as much revenue from its exports. Around half of Ethiopia's coffee is consumed domestically, with 35% enjoyed right where it is grown. There is no specific region that consumes more coffee than others. Coffee consumption rates vary depending on the availability of the product and local preferences. Around 25% of Ethiopia's coffee production is exported. The major buyers include Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and the US. For years, coffee was the primary source of income for smallholder farmers and landless laborists in rural areas. However, fluctuations in global coffee prices and the prevalence of poverty have made it challenging for them to maintain a stable income. Despite the challenges, coffee remains an integral part of Ethiopian culture and identity. It plays a central role in social gatherings, religious ceremonies, and everyday life. The traditional coffee ceremony is an important aspect of hospitality and respect. It involves carefully roasting, grinding, and brewing coffee beans and serving them in a special clay pot called a jebana. This ceremony is not just a way to prepare coffee, but also an opportunity for communities to come together, share stories, and strengthen bonds. While coffee production is a significant part of the Ethiopian economy, it is important to recognize the importance of coffee in the country's culture and daily life. It is not merely a commodity, but a symbol of tradition, community, and identity. As the world continues to consume more coffee, it is crucial to remember the origins of this beloved beverage and the rich culture that surrounds it. In Ethiopia, coffee is produced in 4 main systems. The first is forest coffee, which is harvested from wild coffee trees. These trees are typically found in natural forests and woodlands at higher elevations and contribute to biodiversity conservation efforts. Next is garden coffee, which is grown near homes for personal consumption. This type of coffee is often intercropped with other plants and may use traditional farming methods. Then there is traditional smallholder farm coffee, which accounts for the majority of Ethiopia's coffee production. These farms are usually family-owned and operated and rely on both manual labor and animal power. Finally, there are large-scale modern coffee plantations. These plantations are typically found in lower elevation areas and use mechanized equipment and hired labor to produce commercial quantities of coffee. Ethiopia's coffee industry is highly diverse, encompassing a range of farming practices from small-scale subsistence farming to large-scale commercial production. This diversity not only contributes to the unique flavor profiles of Ethiopian coffee, but also provides livelihoods for many people across the country. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.